I've just come straight off beating Piglet's Big Game. And yes, this is the viral game of the minute. It's sold out on eBay. It's sold out in all my local CEX shops over here in Ireland. I can't buy the game physically. And the reason why this game has gone viral after all of these years is because of this piece of music. Yes, that sounds creepy. It sounds way too creepy for a kid's game, but the real reason why everyone's going crazy about this game is because this sounds like Silent Hill music. And as of right now, it doesn't seem to be officially confirmed as something that they used in Silent Hill and something that was used in Piglet's Big Game. But a lot of people are speculating that both of these pieces of music are from the same sample pack, which makes sense. Regardless, this music should not be in a kid's game. And I never played this game as a kid, and if I did, I'm sure I would have absolutely crapped myself. Now, I've genuinely never played a Winnie the Pooh game in my lifetime, which is weird because Winnie the Pooh is my favorite cartoon character of all time. I grew up with a Winnie the Pooh teddy, and this is going to take it all the way back to the retro and nostalgia stuff. I got this guy in like 2003, and he's still with me. As you can see, he looks a bit like Lieutenant Dan. He doesn't have any feet. He has a hole in his neck. He has a hole in his arse. He has a honey pot on his bum. He has seen better days. I love Winnie the Pooh, but I've never played a Winnie the Pooh game. So I was actually excited to sit down and play this game, not just because of the meme, not just because the game went viral. I just love the Winnie the Pooh property. I love the characters. I love how funny everything is. I love how dumb Winnie the Pooh is, how scared Piglet is, how stupid Tigger is, how anxious Rabbit is, how forgetful Owl is. All of these characters stand out like not many other cartoon characters do. And one of my favorite books of all time is The Tao of Pooh, which teaches you the basic principle of Taoism through Winnie the Pooh, and that's a book I recommend to everybody. If you want more content on retro games and remakes and weird games like this Piglet game, then please subscribe. I hope you enjoyed the video. But let's actually talk about Piglet's Big Game, because this game is a genuine surprise. I had a lot of fun playing it. It took me something like 5 or 6 hours to beat. It was short, it was concise, but what I got was an experience I wasn't really expecting. Now, the game starts off, as you would imagine most Winnie the Pooh games should start off and should be for the rest of their duration. It's really colourful, it's whimsical. You meet Winnie the Pooh and he's forgetful and he's hungry and he's stuck in some caramel because he thought it looked like a good seat, and there's sweets everywhere. It's bright, it's charming, and it's this adventure puzzle game similar to something like a Resident Evil, with obviously no zombies running around and guns to shoot. Instead, you're doing puzzles, and then the combat are QTE events where you're basically scaring all the enemies in the world, Woozles and Heffalumps, which if you grew up with Winnie the Pooh, you know that Woozles and Heffalumps are really scary to all of these characters, so it makes it even funnier. But what makes this game stand out is that it actually has a fair few parallels to Silent Hill. You know, I'm going to put on my English teacher cap here, and, you know, Silent Hill is an exploration of people's fears. These are things that I learned later on as I went through playing Silent Hill, and I watched some videos on it, that the reason why James sees nurses is because that was, you know, that is part of his whole fear. And that's a reflection of James's fears, which manifest themselves into Silent Hill and his version of what Silent Hill is. And the funny thing is about Piglet's Big Game is that it is an exploration of fear. Obviously, we all know what Piglet is. Piglet is the biggest scaredy cat in the world, and, you know, I resonate with Piglet quite a lot. And the whole game is about Piglet's fears, and it's also about delving into the other Winnie the Pooh characters' dreams to figure out what's going on. And some of them are cheerful, some of them are happy, but then other ones are foreboding, they're depressing, they have these weird creatures. And the final level, again, if you don't want to be spoiled for this game, maybe, I don't know, click off. The final level is about Piglet protecting all of his friends from their fears, and Piglet standing up to his own fears to defend his friends. And it's just a cute little message. So the first level, you start off, it's Winnie the Pooh's dream. And of course, Winnie wants honey because that's just what Winnie wants. And you initially meet him, and he's stuck in some caramel that he thought looked like a good snack, but then you realise it wasn't a good seat, and you're basically going through his dream and helping him. Now, there's nothing really surprising about that. It's Winnie the Pooh, and you have to help him get to a honey pot so that he can have his smackerel of honey, and that's just, you know, Winnie the Pooh things. And then the next level, is Rue, where you're in this colourful, dreamlike world where everything is like coloured and put on cardboard, obviously invented in Rue's head, and Rue has lost his ball. And you're trying to help Rue get his ball back, which is, again, completely normal, though a Woozle does steal it, and he's in a trench coat, and the boss fight is fighting 3 Woozles, and yeah, that's kind of a bit of like foreshadowing for what comes next. Because then you go into Owl's world, and Owl is in a library and he has forgotten everything. And first of all, Winnie the Pooh is trapped behind bars, and people were pulling up screenshots of the parallel between Maria trapped behind bars and Winnie the Pooh trapped behind bars. And as you're going around this level, the music is just eerie, it's creepy, and I'm sitting there like, how in God's name did Disney allow this? It's insane that Disney, who are the safe company now, they don't really take much risks. But here they let the developer loose to do their own thing, and what they made was a game that, I mean, rightfully so, stands out to this day. This could have easily have been another adventure platformer game where you collected some cookies and you helped your friends. But no, it's this weird delving into people's own minds, and you know, it's not really that deep. I'm not going to sit here and do an English teacher reading of this, but I don't know, it just stands out so much more than what it could have been if it was just a typical platformer, which a lot of these games back in the day were. And if you've played something like Resident Evil 1, a lot of the things will look very similar. Like there's statue puzzles where you have to move statues around to open up certain things and turn a mirror upside down and get some paintings aligned and all this sort of stuff that just feels very Resident Evil. But this game is actually quite fun. It's fairly intuitive. I know it's a kid's game, but I didn't have to look anything up, which is a big thing. Now, there was a fair bit of backtracking where you go to this room over on this side of the map to get this key, to walk all the way back, to open this door, to talk to this NPC. But the fact that the game is quite short, all that backtracking didn't really annoy me. And the quick time events where you fight the enemies didn't really annoy me. And they actually kind of do a couple of things to make the combat a bit varied. Eventually, you meet an enemy that flips the screen, and there are specific QTEs where you have to hold a direction on the analog stick plus a button. So when the screen is upside down, you have to really think about it before the enemy gets to you. And one thing that I absolutely adore about this game, and there's a couple of little game design elements that this game didn't need and so many licensed games never had, but you're sitting there like, oh, this is actually a very, very competent developer making this game. Piglet doesn't have a health bar, which is something that some survival horror games do, where you have to actually look at the character. The character might be holding their side or limping, and then that's an indication of how much damage they've taken. And in any normal licensed game, they would have given Piglet, like, let's say, 3 honey pots or 3 cookies for his health. But instead, there's no health bar, and the only way you receive damage is if in these QTEs the enemies get close to you and then they scare you. But the only way you know what health Piglet has left is that his state changes. So normal Piglet walks around fairly briskly, and then slightly scared Piglet will stop every now and again and almost shiver and slow down, so that if an enemy is running after you, you run at your own pace, but every now and again you will slow down, which means the enemies can close gaps. It also means that walking around is a lot slower, so you want to actually restore your health. And then the final Piglet state is in his ultra terrified state, which means if you get caught one more time, you will die and get sent back to the last checkpoint or to the save point. The cool thing about this is like there's almost this little risk reward where you kind of want to be in the really scared state, because Piglet actually runs faster. He sprints around the place, which makes it easier to run away from enemies and also makes all the backtracking way easier. But if you get caught once, then you get sent all the way back to the start of the level. Now, all the stuff you had already done had been completed, but then you have to go back to where you were. And I'm like, what the hell? They didn't have to do this. They could have just had a health bar and it would have been fine. But no, instead, they decided to give you these states to put Piglet in so that you know how much damage he's taking. It's just so clever. And one other thing that I love about the sort of whole game design side of this, and I can't believe I'm talking about the game design in a Piglet game. A lot of games, especially back in this era, and even a lot of games nowadays, they're not very clear on when you have gotten all the collectibles. So the main collectible in this game are cookies, and they're used to basically buy new moves so Piglet can deal more damage to the enemies. And you go around and you kick random objects in the world, and then they drop cookies, and each one drops, say, like 5 or 6 cookies. And when you pick up the last cookie that was in that object, it makes a little jingle. So you know that I don't need to kick that again, because if they despawn and you hadn't collected them all, you have to kick it again, and then it will spawn, say, like the last 2 cookies. And then you collect it, it makes a jingle, and then you're like, okay, I'm done with that little bookcase that I kicked. I don't need to interact with that anymore. And then also, when you collect all the cookies in the room, there is an indicator on the map which shows you that, but you also get this little cutscene where Piglet does this little like dance and there's a little jingle, and then you're like, okay, I'm done with this room. I've collected all the cookies. And I'm like, again, they didn't need to do that, but it's just cool that they went that extra step to make this a better game than it already was, because it's a fairly competent puzzle game. Yes, it's sort of baby's first puzzle adventure, kind of survival horror-y, but not really kind of game. And it is really a great introduction to these sorts of games, because there's a lot of elements that you can take from this and compare it to the likes of Resident Evil or Silent Hill. And I don't know, this is such a surprising game. And of course, there's the part that everybody wants to talk about the most in this game, and that is the Eeyore level. So as we all know, Eeyore is depressed. Eeyore is a very depressed donkey. Everything about Eeyore is just pure depression. And what I love about his world is you go into the world and, you know, it's a typical forest. It's slightly scary. There's some pumpkins and a scarecrow and stuff. It's kind of Halloween themed. And you're like, oh, this looks kind of creepy. And then eventually you do this little puzzle that reveals a staircase underneath Eeyore's tent. And you go down and it's this like haunted castle where there is no color. And you talk to Eeyore, and the whole quest is to restore the color in his mind, which is obviously a very slap you across the face metaphor for Eeyore being completely depressed and there's no color left in his life, and you have to help him bring the color back into his life. But as you're going around here, you get some extremely creepy music. You're walking around a haunted dining room. There is an evil door that's trying to scare you. There is a ghost that blows out candles, and I'm like, what in God's name is this? This is extremely memorable, and again, if I had done this section when I was a kid, I probably wouldn't have been able to finish it, which is just insane to say about a Winnie the Pooh game. I started this channel up like 6 months ago, and I did not think I would be sitting here talking about a Winnie the Pooh game already. And I also wouldn't have thought I'd be talking about a Winnie the Pooh game that went viral because it has the same samples as Silent Hill music. And because of that, Piglet's Big Game is actually a game I recommend you play. It's an easy little puzzle game. You get funny interactions with all the Winnie the Pooh characters, so if you like the Winnie the Pooh characters, then that's brilliant. It also sounds like all the voice actors are there, or if not, they've gotten a lot of really good replacement voice actors to do their voices. And also you're getting almost like a case study of when a developer really cares about a licensed game. Not only did they accurately represent all the characters, they delved slightly deeper than they had to into the sort of game design elements. They also delved slightly deeper into the whole, you know, psychological side of Winnie the Pooh. That is something that I think most adults like about Winnie the Pooh nowadays. And they just wrap it up in this really fun little game where you play as Piglet overcoming his fears. The final boss battle is just, I don't know, so wholesome. And this is the amazing thing about this channel and this retro journey that I'm going on, and hopefully you are all enjoying coming on it with me, is that I'm playing this game, a Winnie the Pooh game that I knew existed, but I never played when I was a kid, and it turns out to be something really special. And there's so many other games that I'm really excited to play, like the Nightmare Before Christmas game. That's a licensed game that is apparently a Devil May Cry-like Nightmare Before Christmas game on PS2. Again, a game I've never played before, a game that is honestly quite expensive right now. And yeah, there's just so many of these amazing games that otherwise I would have never played. So yeah, this channel, I love it so much. Thank you everybody for watching. If you want more childlike horror stuff that probably shouldn't have scared us but did back in the day, I have a great video on that, of games that terrified us that shouldn't have when we were kids, but we're all little piglets inside. We are all very afraid of a lot of stuff, or well, I am, and I would like to think a lot of people are, because I need some people to help me with my fear of horror games and non-horror games. So thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.